And as we continue here on the program, what is IRS Section 180? And is it something that can help farmers and ranchers potentially on their operation or as they grow their operation and buy more land? Something that I will confess I had not heard about before until it was brought to my attention here a few weeks ago. And so let's learn about this and talk about it. Joining us to tell us more, she is with Soil Tax Guys. Carly Pavlinac is with us here today. Carly, welcome to the show. It's good to talk with you.
Hi, yeah, thanks for having me on.
So, IRS Section 180, what exactly is this and why is it something that a lot of folks in agriculture, why haven't they heard about this before? Can you tell us more?
Yeah, so it is a tiny part of the tax code, about 3 paragraphs in like you said, IRS Section 180. And what it is when people buy ag land, so anything crop, cattle, livestock, anything for ag purposes, we come in after closing and do a soil test. And the extra nutrients that are in the soil is a tax deduction to them. So what you want is high levels of phosphorus, potassium, magnesium. The higher those are, the more the tax deduction is. So on average, we see around $500 per acre tax deduction.
And that's, obviously something that when someone buys a piece of land, a lot of those nutrients are going to be there. And I know in many cases, you were telling me this, a lot of folks, even multi-generational farmers and ranchers, are not aware of this until it's too late potentially, because there's some things that if you do them, as I understand it, if you do certain things and make certain applications, then you can't utilize this part of the tax code. Am I understanding that correctly?
You're right. So it's very time sensitive. So basically, after you close on that property, we have to do a soil test before you apply fertilizer. So, anything can happen before closing, and that's what you want. You want to buy property that's been well taken care of and fertilized regularly. But we have to do that soil test after closing and before you spread fertilizer. And if you spread fertilizer without getting the soil test done, then you have lost the ability to take the tax deduction and you can't get it back. It's gone forever. And that's really where, I think that's why not a lot of people have heard of this or do it, because it is such a small window. You really have to be prepared and knowledgeable in it before you even, move forward. I remember last year it was getting to, planting season. We had somebody that was like, hey, I'm going to fertilize next week. Can you guys get over here? And I was like, it's Thursday. You guys are going to fertilize on, next Wednesday. We got it done. But our team rushed over there and we got it done for them. But yeah, so that's a big part of this. It's very time sensitive.
And we can talk more about the work that your team does there with Soil Tax Guys to help aid in this here in a bit. But I think it's quite interesting. And maybe, a lot of producers, when they buy land, they get all roped up in all the usual closing details and things of that nature. And then as soon as, the ink is drying on the dotted line, they're ready to move and do things on this land and make improvements. And so it's important to think about an opportunity like this with that short window that you mentioned, because I know the average deduction, when you add it all up, it could be pretty substantial, right, Carly?
Yeah. Like I said, it's, average of $500 per acre, but it's all dependent on what's in your soil. When we get those results back from the lab, I mean, we've had clients that have had $1 million tax deductions. We have one client that uses this as a strategy, and he buys, 2 to 5 farms a year. And his goal is to get, around $1 million in tax deduction to continue to grow his business. So it's really a great way to preserve wealth, to grow your business and add that strategy, into your daily routine.
And I think about this as well. It's not just something where, 1 or 2 or 3 people have used it, but I mean, there's a lot of people who've been working with you guys and taking advantage of this opportunity. I know you have plenty of examples out there from across the country, Carly. And we're not just talking in one state or another, but in multiple different areas of the U.S., people taking advantage of Section 180.
Yeah, so we've been doing this for a long time. It's actually been in the tax code since the 1960s. And we've done work all the way from New York to California, North Dakota to Texas. We actually haven't done Alaska or Hawaii, but maybe one day. So yeah, it's everywhere in the United States. It's, an IRS tax deduction. So yeah, it's a great thing to utilize and put it in your pocket and use it.
Carly Pavlinack with Soil Tax Guys joining us here today, telling us a little bit more about IRS Section 180. And I think about it from this aspect as well, Carly, and maybe you can share your thoughts on this. But I think farmers and ranchers right now, considering the state of the ag economy and more, if they're looking at buying land, they want to be able to take advantage of any opportunity, any financial opportunity that's out there. And I think that's why it's important to look at something like this to make sure they get some benefit back or get more on that ROI, et cetera, et cetera. I think it's just important for folks to work with a trusted advisor and their CPA, et cetera, work with you guys there at Soil Tax Guys to take advantage of something like this.
Yeah, definitely. And it's something that, most time when you're buying a new property, a new piece of land, you really want to have a soil test done anyways. You want to know what's in that soil. You want to know, what fertilizer do you need to spread if you need to or not. You're acquiring this land for the first time. So regardless of the tax deduction, it's best practices to get a soil test anyways. And one thing we haven't talked about is the investment from the buyer's side. So, when you buy the land, how we do it is it's $10 an acre for us to come out and do the soil testing. We'll get the results back, get them from the lab, and we'll say to you, hey, you're looking at, let's say, $832.64 per acre tax deduction. Do you want to move forward with the official report? And then you'll say yes. And that's when we'll do the official report. And the official report is $30 an acre. So altogether, the whole process is $40 an acre. But really, it's just that beginning $10 an acre for the soil test. So you can know, hey, this is what my soil looks like. And these are my results. And this is the tax deduction I'm getting. So it's pretty, light investment for the return of, average $500 per acre.
And I'm glad you mentioned that and how your guys' process works there at Soil Tax Guys. And again, to reiterate to folks, you can't put fertilizer on this land once you take ownership of it. You got that small window that we talked about. And I believe as well, and you might have said this and I might have missed it, but it's land, if it was purchased from 2022 to now, if I'm understanding that right, because I know there's been plenty of changes with tax code here recently.
We can go back up to 3 years, and we do those from time to time, and most of the time that's if it's a pasture land that hasn't been fertilized or something like that. But a lot, I would say like 95% is when people buy it and then they contact us and we come out and do the soil test. But there are some where we've gone back a couple of years. But even with pasture land, sometimes people are spreading fertilizer for growing hay, for stuff like that. So the best thing to do is learn about this, listen to the podcast, and reach out if you have a question, because it's something that stays buried if you do nothing. You have the potential to save a lot of money, and it's just sitting there in your soil. So it's buried tax deductions.
Well, and as you alluded to a little bit of your process there at Soil Tax Guys, I know folks have questions, want to reach out, want to work with you, need more information. I'm sure probably one of the easiest ways to get started is online, soiltaxguys.com, right, Carly?
Yes, go to our website, soiltaxguys.com, or you can send me an email, Carly, Karly, at soiltaxguys.com, and we can, go over any questions that you have. Because people always have a lot of questions. I mean, I was telling Jesse before we started, I hear multiple times a day, well, I'm a third generation farmer. I've never heard of this, or, my CPA has never talked to me about this. And, a lot of times with CPA, it's such a specialized thing. They're supposed to guide you through your tax deductions and things like that, but they can't know every possible tax deduction in the entire book. So we hear that a lot every day.
I was going to say, I'll echo that sentiment. There's certain things. There's a reason that I am not a tax professional, because I couldn't keep up with all the changes and all the nuances that are there. But this is one that does seem very important for folks in agriculture to think about. Anything final, Carly, you would mention or reiterate to folks in terms of IRS Section 180 before we wrap up here today?
Yeah, I mean, my biggest thing would be if you are paying taxes and you have tax liability, and you're buying some ag land, give us a call. and it's worth, conversation and to figure out if this is a fit for you. Yeah, because you can really build a lot of wealth through knowing and, saving money that you would spend on taxes.
Definitely something to consider. Learn more about IRS Section 180. You can reach out to them easily. SoilTaxGuys.com. With that, Carly Pavlinack with Soil Tax Guys. Thanks so much for joining us here on AOA to tell us more. We appreciate the time, and we'll look forward to talking to you in the future.
Yeah, thanks, Jesse, for having me.